Welcome, everybody. It's good to have you here back in this house, this place, this building. And for those of you watching online, it's good to have you as well. This is our first streaming service live, and we're super excited to invite you all here in the building to witness it. I am about as nervous as I was the first time I ever preached. But it's that nervous excitement kind of a thing. So it's really wonderful, and where am I? I'm totally off my script already. It just took that long. I've got a few announcements to begin with. The first thing, for those of you at home, we're going to be having communion. So make sure you have your sacred morsels. We've got some sacred morsels for y'all. Hopefully you have them. If anybody doesn't have a sacred morsel, they're in the back there, or a greeter will catch you. Also, we're having our pumpkin patch and our fall festival. We're looking for people to attend and to volunteer for it. Please see me or Jeff if you're interested in that. Also, just wanting to reinforce that we've got this new app, and we hope that everybody is interested in downloading that app. And you can also look for not only events on the app, but on Facebook for information. And to let you know a little housekeeping about the service itself. While Harris County is in the red or the orange zone for COVID, we're not going to be having any congregational singing, and the choir is not going to be singing live. We're going to have video choir singing, so that will be really fun. And we're going to let Marshall go crazy on things like the doxology and a hymn, so we're going to be very much enjoying that. And we also want to encourage you to hum, tap, clap, dance, whatever. So, I want to thank you all for joining us, whether you're watching online or you've come in person. It's taken a lot of work to get to this point, and a lot of people have shed what I call blood, sweat, and tears to get us here. Those same people have cracked jokes in the midst of crunch times and things not working out right, just to lift the mood and to get us to the next level. I'll never be able to repay any of them for what they've done, for the efforts that they put in, and for the friendship that we have gained because of this. My heart is knitted to them, and I want you all to know how deeply grateful I am for their sacrifice and labor of love that we've shared. Today is an incredibly special day, and I'm glad that you all have chosen to share your morning co-creating the sacred time and space together with us.
Please join me in the call to worship. From ancient times to this present day, people have gathered in sacred spaces like this one.
Moments of time fold together when we immerse ourselves in love and connection.
We ask for divine love to be revealed to us in this gathering.
We open our spirits to the depth and breadth of divine presence.
We listen for sacred whisperings and await holy joy to be written on our hearts.
Being truly ourselves, we come together in this moment. And now let's take a moment to bring ourselves fully to this time and to this place. As we breathe in and breathe out, we find ourselves in our body. This is the month where we celebrate, honor, and focus on contemplative spirituality. And the centering moment is one of our cornerstones toward practicing that contemplation. Remembering that we live in this physical aspect of ourselves and that it gets us around the best way that it can. So send a lot of love to your body right now for all it does. Even for the way that it wakes you up with aches and pains. To say, hey, I need a little help here. And to the times when your body says, I could do so much more. You should challenge me a little bit. Send a little love to your body. And as you do that, send a little love to your mind. Because the way you think is unique. there are things that you think about that other people don't. You bring an aspect to a conversation that is beneficial and beautiful. Send love your way to your mind when it doesn't operate the way you think it should. When it breaks down and you're like, I have no idea what to think or what to say. And remember that your mind works really hard. And give it a break and let it rest. And in that way, send love to your mind. As we consider our emotions, which also really bring something special to every conversation, to every moment, to every relationship. Our emotions are a part of us that gets translated through our body and through our mind. It's this amorphous kind of aspect to ourselves that's so real and almost tangible. We are blessed to have so many different emotions coursing through us, whether the emotions seem to be helping us or not. In those moments when they're not quite as in line as we wish, send love to those emotions because they're telling you something. And when they're joyous, send love to those emotions because they're telling you something, and believe it. Believe your own joy as we move into our spiritual aspect, which is even more kind of fuzzy, less tangible, and yet so very much there. Breathe into your spirit, connecting it to your emotions, to your body, to your mind, and know that your spirit is with you every moment of every day, even when we're not thinking about it. And we are connected spirit to spirit in our relationships, in stores, wherever we encounter people, and whenever we encounter nature, our holy love, our spirit is engaged. So breathe into every aspect of your being. Be in this moment, one with another, as we bring ourselves fully to this time and to this place. Friends, I don't know if your Facebook feeds and Instagrams and all your other social media have been blowing up with concerns about what's going on in Texas, but mine sure have. And more than just Texas, but globally with the pandemic and its resurge and schools, what's happening in schools. There's so much. So as we enter into this moment of pastoral prayer, I want to hold all those things mindfully, naming those few, but knowing that each and every one of you here in this room and watching this online on whatever day of the week that you're watching this has stuff that's holding your heart, that's concerning, that's breaking you. But I also know, can I just say first that this is really hard to stay in this one little square? For the sake of our camera operators, I'm going to do it. But I know that you have good stuff in your life too. I know that you have joy, that you have connections, that you have relationships and friendships that are deeply meaningful. So as we go into this pastoral prayer, let's hold that as well. Please join your hearts with mine. Divine Beloved, our lives are full. We know the hard things and we know the joyous things. And then we know all the daily stuff that we're just like, how am I going to get through this? And I believe that you see us in the midst of it all and that you're guiding us. We lift up our spirits on behalf of this state that we live in, whichever county we live in, the country, but globally, all that is going on that our hearts are breaking over. We ask that you would help us to be wise and insightful and know how to act, what to think, and how to participate with each other to make this a more loving and kind world. Help us also to recognize, oh God, the beauty that's all around us, and to not be so cast down with the stuff that's hard, by looking into the joy that is present, that's sometimes hard to access. Give us the strength to be resilient in times like these, and help us to connect even more fully with each other. Because through that connection, we have so much strength, and our passion can be renewed, and we can continue on in this journey, going from, as it's written somewhere, glory to glory, meaning to meaning, beauty to beauty. God, thank you for being with us, present every moment, and especially at this time. And because we call on you together, let us lift up our voices in these words of prayer, saying, Higher power, here with me now, humbly I seek your grace. All in your care, your will be done, through me as it is through others. Give me today hope and courage to forgive all past transgressions as I surrender my fears and resentments. Strengthen me against temptation, but free me to let go of control. Fill my spirit with calm and compassion and clarity to carry to others. Amen. And now our choir.
Each week we collect 2 offerings. One is for the church, but goes into our general fund for the running of the church and our ministries. And the second one is a loose offering, which is sent to a designated charity, which changes every week. If you've brought your offering in person today, you are welcome to drop it into the new offering box in the back. It is the little glass church near the doors to the narthex. Our loose offering for today will go to the Eden Hill community, which is a continuing care retirement community and a ministry of Faith UCC in New Brunswick, Texas. They provide independent living, assisted living, and skilled nursing options for seniors. If you would like to give to our general fund, to the loose offering, or to both, you can use bill pay from your bank, send us a check, use the Plymouth app, or use push pay according to the directions on the screen. As always, thank you for supporting Plymouth and the ministries of the loose offering. Please join me in the offertory prayer. It is a gift to be able to give something away.
We are called to be a part of something bigger than ourselves.
Spirit of love, look upon us now.
Bless these gifts, those we can see and those we cannot,
May our hopes come true for the better world we dream of.
as we work together in love. And now it's time for the kids. All of you are my children. That includes you watching at home. But if any kids want to watch this, whether it's now or later, we're glad to have you listen in. We decided to keep this as a part of the service, even though if we had kids, I probably wouldn't gather them up to the front, but just so I could say hi to them and pay attention to them, to pay attention to you wherever you are. So today is contemplative spirituality, and we're talking about food. And one of the things that I think as a kid is really important is to try to eat different kinds of food. To not always go to the one thing that you have your favorite. And I would like to ask the kids, what's your favorite foods? And to tell me what your favorite food is, and what is the food that you absolutely would refuse to eat? Because the food that you would refuse to eat is the food that I'd like you to try. And they probably wouldn't. You probably won't. But there's also lots of other different kinds of food. Things to experiment with. Recently, Marcia and I had star fruit, and we had another fruit that I can't say the name of, and they were all very different, and some of them were very delicious, and one of them really wasn't. And that was okay, that it wasn't my favorite. It might also not have been quite ripe enough, so that had something to do with it as well. But it makes me think about this food thing that I grew up with an Italian grandmother. And my Italian grandmother made Italian spaghetti sauce flavored mostly with basil and with garlic. And that's how I knew it, and that's how I loved it. It was the most delicious thing in the world. You couldn't get enough of Grandma's spaghetti. And I'm sure, kids, you've got something that is like, this is what somebody makes, and it's the most delicious thing ever, and I would never, ever, ever want it to change, and it never should, because that's the only way you should really make it. I learned when I got to know my cousins, who were Italian from Venice. My grandmother was from Calabria. My Italian cousins from Venice, they put a race. My grandmother was like, don't ever do that. Just don't do it. It's wrong. Well, then I later learned another Italian family, and they put cinnamon in their spaghetti sauce. I didn't tell my grandmother. It didn't seem like the right thing to do. But I learned to love them all. And I learned that there's lots and lots of ways to have spaghetti sauce, which was a big deal for me because I was kind of a fundamentalist about it for a little while. So kids, I want to encourage you, try new things. And remember that every time you get to eat something, that it's a gift. And it can be a joy. Even if you taste it and you're like, yeah, that's not so much what I want to eat again, try it a second time. Try it a few years later. Because sometimes our taste buds change. And all of this food is a gift of God, something beautiful and wondrous. And when we experiment, we're actually practicing a kind of faith, a certain kind of spirituality, connecting to the food. And it's wonderful and glorious. Will you join me in prayer? And would everybody in the congregation repeat after me? Oh God, you make wonderful food. It just jumps out of the ground. And that's a marvel to us. Help us to see the beauty. And help us to learn to experiment with all the deliciousness that you provide. We love you, God. And we know that you love us. And all God's children said, Amen.
Our biblical witness this morning is from Isaiah chapter 25, verses 4 to 8. For you, O God, have been a refuge to the poor, a refuge to the needy in their distress, a shelter from the rainstorm and a shade from the heat. When the blast of the ruthless was like a winter rainstorm, the noise of bullies like heat in a dry place, you subdued the heat with the shade of clouds. The song of the ruthless was stilled. On this mountain, the Lord of hosts will make for all peoples a feast of rich food, a feast of well-aged wines, of rich food filled with marrow, of well-aged wines strained clear. God will destroy on this mountain the shroud that is cast over all the peoples, the sheet that is spread over all nations, and will swallow up death forever. God will wipe away the tears from all faces, and the disgrace of all people God will take away from all the earth, for the Lord has spoken.
Isn't that a beautiful promise? So hopeful, so wonderful. Our contemporary witness is called The Dinner Table by Dr. Barry Jones. It says this: tables are one of the most important places of human connection, which is why I think the prophet Isaiah, he didn't say this, but which is why I think the prophet Isaiah says, I'm going to make a feast for you. God has a way of showing up at tables. New Testament scholar N.T. Wright captured something of the sentiment when he wrote, when Jesus himself wanted to explain to his disciples what his forthcoming death was all about, he didn't give them a theory, he gave them a meal. I'm convinced that one of the most important spiritual disciplines for us to recover in the kind of world in which we live is the discipline of table fellowship. Christians need to recover the art of a slow meal around a table with people we care about. Table fellowship doesn't often make the list of the classical spiritual disciplines, but in the midst of a world that increasingly seems to have lost its way with regard to matters of both food and soul, Christian spirituality has something important to say about the way that sharing tables nourishes us both physically and spiritually. We need a recovery of the spiritual significance of what we eat, where we eat, and with whom we eat. That's our contemporary witness by Dr. Barry Jones. When we begin a new month, we begin a new theme. This month, we're focusing on contemplative spirituality. I mentioned that before. Contemplative spirituality is one of our four voices. And it's practiced in a variety of ways, most of them involving a time of meditation and slowing down to give careful thought and attention to something. It can be practiced through movement or through stillness, in silence or in sound. The goal of contemplative spirituality is to be present to the moment, whatever moment you have at hand, or whatever moment you choose to participate in. Many types of practice ask you to follow your breath or to feel your feet on the ground. Being attentive to our embodiment is a great way to engage our spirituality because it reminds us that we are not a dichotomy of spirit and matter. In other words, we're not either or at any given time. We're a blending of those things, and we're so much more. Being in a relationship to the wholeness of ourselves is a way of living faith in an intentional way. Today we're talking about sacred meals. We need to eat to live. Our bodies require food and water, sustenance, to give us energy to go about our day. When we have plenty to eat, it's easy to take for granted the necessity of our food. We can grab and go before we're even hungry. Grocery stores are full of food from across the globe. It's a wonder that we have everything that we do at our fingertips. The necessity of food and the eating of it is just a part of our day. We don't need to be spiritual or think about faith to eat. It's different than praying, isn't it? When you pray, you think to yourself, okay, now I'm being spiritual. When you eat, you're just eating. We don't need to be spiritual or think about how intrinsically holy or sacred the act of eating might be. And is it intrinsically holy and sacred? Well, probably not any more than any other aspect of life is intrinsically holy and sacred. Even if I wish it were a little bit more, because I think it's really cool when everyday things are super holy and sacred. But can enjoying a meal be a holy and sacred act? Absolutely. And I love seeing all the nodding heads. You bet it can. There are lots of teachings about how to slow down and meditate during a meal, how to take a bite of food with intention and appreciation, so not filling only our bellies, but our hearts and our spirits as well. Taking in a solitary meal in a sacred and holy way is a joy to me. And it's easy to do when we allow ourselves to slow down or stop altogether, to set aside what's left on our lists. Anybody got stuff left on their lists? Yeah, a few of you. To set those things aside, to set aside the concerns of the day and just be grateful for this meal. And to taste the food, to taste the drink in front of us, to actually feel it in our mouth, to taste all the levels of that food, to experience it becoming a part of our body. Okay, so that's doing kind of food meditation on your own. What about eating together? Turning off that TV, not reading, not playing a game on our phone. Being at a table together to share a meal offers a connection opportunity. Does it have to happen at a retreat space where everyone is quiet and everyone's intention is aligned? Well, it can happen that way. I don't know if any of you have gone to retreats and you've had those moments. They can be deeply meaningful, really super wonderful. But it doesn't have to happen that way. You can share a time together at a restaurant with everyone having something different to eat because you've ordered off the menu. You can cook for a friend and eat together. You can order pizza. Anything. And being together in that space, sharing that moment, connected by each other and food, you can have a holy and sacred moment. In our reading from Isaiah, the prophet declares that the poor, the needy, the bullied, and all those whose well-being has been hampered will be offered a banquet, a feast. Now, this doesn't sound contemplative in the strictest sense, right, of slowing down and feeling the moment. A banquet is loud. A feast is festive. Imagine yourself there. The intention of everyone is aligned, but it's aligned to celebrate no matter how raucous it gets, how loud or frenzied or non-contemplative it might seem. Everyone has enough and more than enough. Fear and agony are melted away. This, to me, is a sacred meal, a holy time of celebration and joy. A birthday party, a funeral repast. These are all examples of ways we gather around food to celebrate and honor moments. Dr. Barry Jones, the writer of our contemporary witness, says, "I'm convinced that one of the most important spiritual disciplines for us is to recover in this kind of world in which we live is the discipline of table fellowship, the art of the slow meal around a table with people we care about." When he says slow meal, I don't know what images come to your mind first, but mine comes to that retreat center in the woods where everybody's quiet and everybody's aligned, and it's just this deeply meaningful moment. But then quickly my mind bounces to the birthday party, to the funeral repast, to the times when I have gone to Minute Maid Park and watched the Astros, and we all ordered whatever it is we ordered, and we toasted each other with our food when somebody made a run. That's a holy and sacred moment to me, not just winning the game, but sharing that time together. And then I think about Isaiah, feast, where I imagine the revelry continued for hours and hours, multiplying the joy of each person because they were celebrating together. For me, this is a form of contemplative spirituality because it creates community by connecting us to each other in a shared moment with food, which is necessary for survival, but also delightful and delicious. The prophet Isaiah wanted his people to know God as one who offers ample resources, not the bare minimum, and also a God who delights in offering the best, the most nutritious, and the most delicious. Also, a God who offers choice. The feast described has a variety of the best, most sought-after foodstuffs and drinks. The description of the event is exuberant and life-affirming. How can this not be a sacred moment, a sacred meal? Another meal to consider as contemplative moment is the communion meal. According to Dr. Jones, the New Testament scholar N.T. Wright wrote, "When Jesus himself wanted to explain to his disciples what his forthcoming death was all about, he didn't give them a theory, he gave them a meal. This meal is often constructed as a somber one of deep reflection. I think that is a meaningful way to share the communion table. I also understand this table as a symbolic way for Jesus to celebrate with his friends. Yes, he was sharing about his forthcoming death, but he was also celebrating with them the community that they had created together. They couldn't have had that meal if they weren't friends. They couldn't have had that time together if they didn't love each other and respect each other. He was celebrating with them the promise that he would live on in each of them and in each of us. Today we celebrate this ritual in a symbolic way. We don't have a feast. At least generally we don't have a feast. Every once in a while we do. But we take bread and a cup to remember the time that Jesus shared with his followers, his friends. Contemplative spirituality runs the gamut from loud to silent, from joyful to somber. It's my impression that the meal they shared together that night contained a little bit of everything, which is what makes it the holy meal that it is. This morning, what we have to share with each other here in this church, well, it looks and is small. We're not going to take it right this moment, but check it out. That's a tiny little loaf of bread. Now, those of you at home, you might have a big old slice of bread or a big old cup of juice or something, but this is pretty small. Is it enough? It absolutely is enough. This is a symbolic meal which not only helps us to remember the supper Jesus shared with his friends, but also to inspire us to have our own feasts, our own celebrations, our somber dinners, and reflective meals. After our service, when we have our tailgating party, it might look, well, not after the tailgating party, but in the midst of the tailgating party, it might look to the casual observer like it's just, oh, look at, they're having some random party. But it's more than that. It's a coming together of people who want to continue to create community. We will share food with each other. We'll eat each other's food. We'll eat our own food. We'll laugh. We'll listen. We'll hope for the future, and we'll collect memories. The bread and the cup that we have before us now, just like the bread and the cup that Jesus shared, is a reminder of the past and a foreshadowing of the future, which is a very good thing because the future is always before us. It's always where we're heading, in the midst of living in the present while we remember the past. So let's remember this past meal. There was a night when Jesus was sitting with his friends in the midst of what he knew to be an absolutely terrible night. It was one that he was afraid of. We knew that he was afraid. But it was also one that, in a sense, he was looking forward to. And so in the midst of that meal, he stopped the conversation and he picked up the bread. And he gave thanks for it and he broke it and he told his friends, I want you to know that this is me. This is me. This is my way of sharing with you. And I want you to do this, not just this one time, but I want you to do this often. And every time you do this, I want you to remember me. And that's what we're doing today. We're remembering not only the one that we follow in teaching, but we're remembering this community that was built on that teaching. So, my friends, let us take and eat in remembrance of Christ. In the same way, he picked up the cup. In the midst of the conversation, he stopped the meal and he gave thanks for this and he blessed it. And he said, this is also me. This is another way that I'm sharing with you. Because during the course of his ministry and his life with his friends and his followers, he shared himself in very many ways. So the bread is one way that Christ is with us, and the cup is another way. And so he said, take this and pass it around among you, share it with each other, do it often, and each time you do this, remember me. And so now, my friends, let us take and drink in remembrance of Christ. Would you join your hearts in a moment of prayer? Holy love, we thank you for this bread and for this cup, for the way that it reminds us of the dinner party that Jesus had with his friends, and the way that he wanted to share himself with them in a tangible, concrete way. Help us to share with each other in that same kind of tangible, concrete way as we build community, as we are shaped and reshaped by moments, by events, and by times and memories that we collect together. Thank you for this tangible reminder of your goodness, of the memory of you, and of the way that we get to be a fellowship one with another. Amen. And now it's time to go from this moment to whatever it is that you have next. I hope if you are here at the church that what's next for you is our tailgating party. And I hope that if any of you live close and are watching from home, that you're already packing up your picnic basket and you're heading to the church to join us at the tailgating party. We've got extra hot dogs and buns and some chips and other stuff. So if you didn't bring food with you, there'll be some food to share. Everyone is welcome. Whatever it is that is next for you. May you find a blessing from your food and drink this week. May it be a powerful source of spirituality for you as you connect to the sacred earth that has been created for us to bring us this bounty. And as it connects you to the people who have worked hard to bring that food into our stores, onto our table, may the food that you have this week be a reminder of the love that we share with each other and with God. And with that, go forth in peace and as peacemakers.